Hey, Robert.
Hey, Jen.
What are you listening to this week? Welcome to What Are You Listening to This Week? The weekly podcast where we talk about our favorite songs. Some old, some new, all good. I'm Jenn Tully, and this week I'm joined by Robert Neff, scientist, guitarist, rock music expert, and one of my all time favorite people to talk music with. Also, did you know that now on Spotify, you can listen to the show with the songs we discuss incorporated? Just search for What Are You Listening to with Music. If you're not listening on Spotify, be sure to give the playlist a listen and then tune into our conversation. With that, let's get started. Robert, what are you listening to this week?
This week I'm listening to Angel by Jimi Hendrix and Zayn.
Well, I have to tell you, when I saw this as one of your picks, I was a little bit surprised. Not by the Jimi Hendrix, we've talked about this before. I think that you hold an honorary PhD in Jimi Hendrix, if I'm not mistaken. But the Zayn part threw me. So tell me how you chose this song.
So this song came out on Black Friday, so it was just released 2 Fridays ago from when we're recording this, and I got this was a collision of my worlds. I have two teenage daughters that are into One Direction and Harry Styles and Zayn and Five Sauce,
As they
and
should be. Yes,
yes,
good girls, because you've
and
trained them
so
right.
I've been exposed to Zayn through them, and Jimi Hendrix would have been 80 last weekend. We lost him at 27, but
Oh,
uh, they called it a posthumous collaboration on the email I
okay.
got from one of my guitar emails, and I was like, what the heck is a posthumous collaboration?" Um, but they, to commemorate Jimmy's 80th birthday, and also like Janie Hendrix, Jimi Hendrix, baby sister who was baby stepsister, or I'm sorry, his half sister who was
Okay.
8 or 9 when he died, has controlled and run the Jimi Hendrix brand and estate for 27 years, and she's
Oh,
done a great
wow.
job with that, keeping him in the forefront. And they sounds like they got Zayn to sing a new vocal track on the original master of the song Angel by Jimi Hendrix.
I love it. What do you think of his vocals? I mean, I think that he sounds really good. I mean, I would never go so far, maybe, as to say it's better than the original because I don't know that you get better than Jimi Hendrix. But from a vocal perspective, I mean, Zayn kind of delivers, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The I was blown away by it. So that song was a posthumous release by Jimi Hendrix too. So that was the first album that came out after he died, called "The
Mhm.
Cry Love," and that was one of the best songs on there. But these were all unfinished things when he died, and at the time and in history, people have really dogged "The Cry Love" and "Rainbow Bridge," the ones that came out the first couple
Right.
after he died, and you don't know if it was up to Jimmy's standard. And Jimmy was, one of the most important electric guitar players in history. He wasn't one of the most important vocalists in history.
Okay, okay, right.
And I was so excited, and it's like, man, Zayn can sing. So I was excited for it, and I found out about it about a week before. I shared it with the girls. They got hyped. We were all excited for it. So that was the best part about Black Friday was that song that
Was
day.
this song? Yeah.
And but when I first heard it, and I don't know Zayn that well, but that first 20 seconds, I was like, it sounds like Chris Stapleton,
Yeah, it
right?
sounded so good. I couldn't believe it. I was really I mean, everyone who's ever listened to the show knows really like the only One Direction member that matters for me is Harry. I'm like the rest of the band, I'm like, bye. It's all about Harry for me. But when I heard this, I was like, wow, same exact reaction. I was like, I had no idea that his voice was that was that strong. I think that he sounded so good. And I love that this song was featured too. We've only had one other Jimi Hendrix song on the show so far, which is surprising to me. When I was looking back, I'm like, for almost 30 episodes to only have one Hendrix song, that's crazy. But when I had Taylor Ravenna on, she also remembered she likes Hendrix and listened with her dad a lot. And so we featured May This Be Love on that episode. But I was so happy to have this song because I think people that are, I think it's like you said, it's like a nice merging of worlds, right? Like whether you're a Hendrix fan or you're a Zayn fan, I would say to anybody, if you're a Zayn fan and you don't think you like Jimi Hendrix, listen. And if you're a Jimi Hendrix fan and you don't think you like Zayn, listen, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and um, the his vocal performance. I mean, he hit it out of the park. It was fantastic, and that's a really strong song. And like I said, Jimmy, um, it was a good vocal performance by him, but it was just really cool, and it must have been really cool for Zayn too to be able to. It's like they took the original master and they faded Jimmy down and said, "Okay, Zayn, you go,"
Yeah.
and and that was really cool. And and like I said, right now Zane's top five, three of those would have over 1 billion streams. So
Wow.
I really hope this angel gets its wings, and I would be super happy if this got just lots of people to experience it. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Well, moving on then, because I don't think we announced this at the top of the show, but we are going to talk about 5 songs this episode because you brought so many amazing tunes, and some of them were crossover for me that we had to round out the year with kind of 5 favorite rock songs from the year. So tell me about your second pick.
Okay, so for my second pick, I chose Knife Through Butterfly Heart, which is um, one of my favorite tracks off the new Cult album that was just released in October. And I didn't have a radar on my radar that they were releasing a new album, but it's really good.
Yes, yes. I mean, whenever I heard there was the Cult album coming, I was like, I think for people of a certain age, the Cult holds like so many special places, right? Like, I think that they were super MTV darlings in the heyday of MTV. So anytime I think of the Cult, I can't help but conjure like Ian Astbury and his like white suit and turban look from the She Sells Sanctuary video, or that Firewoman video that felt like it was on like
Right.
constant repeat, So when I heard they had a new album coming, I was like, what's this going to be like? And I love it. I love this album. Tell me what you think about it.
So it's so good. It's so hard to imagine, but the Cult Love came out in 1985, and
Wow.
that one's really held the test of time. And feel like, and that's truly one of my top 10 albums of all time if I had to pick 10. So
And
I'm a huge Cult fan.
I always thought that was their first album, and you set me straight on that, right? That's Love is not the Cult's first album, right?
Well, I was reading about it, the release, and they said they were getting back to the roots of their first two albums, and I could tell from the conversation that they weren't including Electric. And to me, I always thought Love was their debut album, or if I knew this, I'd forgotten it. But they actually it was the first, Love was the first US release, but they had a full album in '84 called Dreamland that was just a UK release. And now it's on Spotify and all that, and you can listen to it. But, Dreamland is really good too. So I've been, listening to I'm sorry, it's Dreamtime. I've been listening to
Mhm.
Dreamtime and the new one. It's like I got two
Yeah,
new albums. Their first one, and their new. It's,
and their last.
spread by almost 40 years, right?
Well, and they
So
sound different though, right? Like I kind of did that just as an experiment. I went back and re-listened to the Love album, which again, I think that's what most people think of when they think of the Cult. They think of either Firewoman or She Sells Sanctuary, which again, both great songs. And if you're a younger listener and you're not familiar with the Cult, go back, do some digging. I don't think you'll be disappointed. But I feel like this album, Under the Midnight Sun, the new album that features this song, that Knife Through Butterfly Heart, it feels like a grown up version of the band, right? Like it sounded different to me than the Love album, lyrically, musically, vocally. Like it sounded like they'd evolved, they'd grown up a little.
Oh, absolutely. And when I played that song for Carissa, she was like, it's very theatric. She said she could imagine that that song was playing at the end of the movie as the movie credits roll and you're shedding a tear, and it's
Yeah.
it's so epic, and he can still sing. Good night.
Yes.
He is such a good singer. I on my notes I put hashtag butter, hashtag epic. It's we don't have these big, power. I wouldn't call it a ballad, but we don't have these big dramatic, or they're not as popular. And we've been seeing song times even go down. Remember, it's like song times used to be limited
Yeah.
by you know the radios
Radio it.
wanting them to be less
Yeah.
than 3 minutes, and then CDs came out, and everybody could do whatever they wanted. And then now it's going back down, I think, because of our attention spans, maybe. you know
Right. Well, and
so
vinyl too. We talked about this, right? Like people are kind of getting back to vinyl. And so then you have to think about like an A side and a B side, and you have like technical limitations on how long you can make songs.
yes, I love that. I mean, you're limited to 22 minutes a side, and I think that's a good trend too, because we're of the album generation, and I love um, when it feels like an album, for newer material,
Me too.
and this Call album does for sure. And I think it's when CDs came out, all of a sudden everyone could play for 70 minutes, and maybe they felt like they had to, like if they
Right.
only put out a 40-minute release, people would be like, you could have you could have given us 30 more minutes,
Right.
and I think because vinyl's hot enough and people are thinking of that format, it's making it to where musicians don't feel like they have to release an hour's worth of music, and they're now waiting until they have 8, 10 songs instead of just releasing little. I don't like when artists just release one song every month for like 4 months or whatever. That drives me nuts.
You want the whole thing. And I think for this one too, like this album as a whole works really well for me. I think that that's something that the Cult is good at as well. Like sometimes you'll get an album, whenever Matt and Sam are the guys that host Super Awesome Mix and I talk, we often talk about no skip albums, like how hard those are to find an album that you just want to listen to beginning to end. And I feel like this Under the Midnight Sun album and the Cult Love album are both two albums that are really no skip. Like I just want to hear every song from beginning to end, and I want to experience the entire Ian Astbury experience from all the time, all day long. I just think he got the memo on how to be a proper front man, right? Like that's what I love about him. That's one of the things I love about this band. And again, for those of you that didn't grow up in the era when MTV showed music videos, go back and listen to the albums for a music education, and then go back and watch the videos for a good laugh. They
Yes,
don't hold
yes.
up really well.
And another reason I chose this one is I think besides just the entire band, you know I, Billy Duffy's just
Yeah.
way underrated as a guitar player. And um it's just got an epic guitar solo. And um you know you you know I want more and more guitar solos in modern music, so it was really great to hear that. And this fits right in with the epic songs from Pink Floyd and Zeppelin. It was really really good. And you know Billy Duffy's guitar tones are just crazy. And one little um funny part about it, I love how it like fades out at the end, and then
Yes,
they're
and
like,
then comes
oh
back.
wait, Billy's not done yet, and then it it fades back in. That was
It's
really.
so cool though. I'm so glad you brought that up because I love that about this song. It might be my favorite thing about it. You think it's over and then but it never like all the way dies.
Yeah,
Like you
they do
said,
the
it just
slow
kind
fade, and
of,
they're like, nah, we're not done yet. And then
yes.
that was like that was pretty cool.
I totally agreed. I thought that was like a baller choice too. I'm like, oh, you're badass when you can do that. When you
So
can keep them hanging on.
yes, and the Cult, they do not have the popularity in the last 10 or 20 years, and they have released a handful of albums in the last 15 years, and I've enjoyed them all. But if you were a big fan of the Cult, back in their heyday, Love, Electric, Sonic Temple,
Yeah.
um, and hadn't thought of them for a while, give this a chance. It just came out in October, and it's a strong album.
I agree. I agree. Well, speaking of strong albums, and Carissa, I think let's mention Carissa's your wife, who's also a music fan. And I believe your third pick was inspired by her or it came from her. Is that right? Tell me what your third song
Yes.
was.
Yes, so this was the newest band and song for me that I chose. It's Fontaines D.C. The song's Roman Holiday.
Yes. Now, Fontaines DC. I'm telling you, these guys I think are going to be huge, and they're already big. I mean, this album, Roman Holidays from the Skinty Fia album, released on in April of this year. But I think that they've been nominated for NME like Best Band in the World awards, like I think 2020, 2022. Like I think these guys are going to be huge. 2023. I feel like that's their year.
Yes, and so how I found out about this, I read just a little one-page article about them in one of my guitar magazines, and made a note that this is something I want to check out, and I hadn't checked it out yet. And Chris and I were playing cards, and this stream just came in randomly to what we were listening to. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I love this song. I love these guys." And I'm like, "Who is it?" Fontaines DC. And I'm like, "Oh, I remember, reading about them." And the song for me, the reason I love that song so much is I don't know if they did it intentionally or accidentally, but when I hear that song, I get a flood of all the goodness from the Manchester scene.
Yep.
And, it's like you get a flood of all your great memories of the Stone Roses and Happy Mondays and The Cure and the Charlatans and
Yes.
Blur and the Smiths.
All of it.
And it speaks to that so well as a new release. And like I said, I don't know if they were intentionally trying to go after that sound, like if they're huge fans of that, or it's just too similar if you were part of that. So, I was 20 when Nevermind came out, and the Blood Sugar Sex Magic by the Chili Peppers, and I was also newly dating Carissa. And as grunge was exploding, I was totally on the grunge train, but I was totally having fun with the Manchester, Stone
Yeah.
Roses, Blur, Happy Mondays, all that fun stuff. The Cure, Carissa's a huge Smiths fan, and so it was really it's really interesting song. It's a good driving song.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like too, you summed it up perfectly, right? Like this feels like a merge of like grunge and Manchester scene, right? Like that's what this band sounds like to me. And I wrote a note as well, in addition to like calling out like Stone Roses and Blur and all the similarities there. They also kind of sounded like an Irish Oasis, right? Like I got a little bit of Oasis in there too, which I love. And they are an Irish band. They were formed in 2017. And I was curious just because it's such an interesting name and I knew they were Irish. I was like, what does that even mean? So they were named after the character Johnny Fontaine from The Godfather. And then I guess they learned that there was another band in Los Angeles called the Fontaines. And so they added the initials DC, which stand for Dublin City because they're Irish and from
Oh, cool,
Dublin.
cool.
Yeah, so it's the character from The Godfather, that I think originally like they wanted Frank Sinatra to play the Johnny Fontaine. He ended up declining, but like it was a singer, and I think he was the godson to Vito Corleone or something like that. So
Oh,
they pulled their name from that, and then went to and then added the DC for Dublin City when they found out there was already another band called the Fontaines. But I feel like this song like for sure open the lyrics on this one. It is worth like reading through those. They
yes.
this band like kiss the Blarney Stone for sure. Like they have the gift of gab and they know how to turn a phrase. Even like the Skinty Fia, the name of the album is like an Irish swear. Like I guess one of the band members, like his great aunt used to say it like as like if she dropped something, like, oh, Skinty Fia. It's like, I think it like literal translation is like damnation of the deer or something weird. So when you see the
Yes,
cover
yes.
art, there's a
I looked
deer
that
on
up
the.
too.
So I'm like,
And
what does this mean?
and then just the "Can You Feel It" part of the song, and the the mix is so good that they draw it out. Like I said, it feels like a song that you would want to put on a long drive form, mixtape. And the the guitar was really good. I was surprised, at the level of the guitar playing too.
Well, yeah, musically, I felt like they were really, I mean, again, I always have to default to the real musicians, not just me being a music fan, but technically they sounded really strong to me. They sounded tight, they sounded together, they sounded like more well above proficient in their instruments. What did you think about them just as a band?
Yeah, the the playing is fantastic, and you know the like I was saying, if they were purposely trying to capture that the sound of those bands we were talking about, they nailed it. And if they came upon that their own, they've got really good taste.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think they're cool. They sound different than a lot of other bands out there. Like they kind of reminded me of the feeling I had when I first heard Wet Leg. I was like, this band doesn't sound like anything else I'm hearing. And that's what I felt about Fontaines DC. Even though they kind of reference back that older time, they still sound new and fresh to me.
Yeah, and actually the fact that he's Irish and he has that accent that comes up, that
Yeah.
might make it sound more Manchester. If he didn't have an Irish accent, then maybe you wouldn't feel that as much. But again, I just had this flood of, thinking of all the great music, that seems to reference.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, like one more like tidbit is that I think when you dig into like the meaning of, and there's a great Rolling Stone article where they go through this album. I don't know if we said the name of the album that it's on, but oh yeah, we did the Skinty Fia album, where they go through each song and kind of talk about the meaning, which of course I love. I love it when artists break down like behind the music, right? I love
Hmm.
it. A lot of this album, and especially this song in particular, is about their experience of feeling kind of like outsiders as Irishmen living in London. And they're still
Right,
kind of like, second class citizens there. Like they don't like there's a lot of jeering and poking fun at the Irish in London. And so it's funny to me that they sound so much like that Manchester scene and still are like rebelling against, this sort of like we're not a colony anymore. Like,
right, right.
we're Irish and we're proud and we're going to do what we do. So,
But it was funny. You know, when I read that they were Irish, to me it sounded, I can't tell the difference. I wasn't thinking of U2. I was thinking of, Charlatans UK or Stone
yeah.
Roses. I
Yeah. Well, they
I
sound
was in
nothing like
UK,
you too.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
They sound nothing like you too. If your only association of Irish band is you two, or even like a Mumford and Sons, they don't sound anything like that either.
No, they don't.
um,
That was part one of Jenn's interview with Robert Neff. Tune in next week to hear Jenn's picks and the rest of the interview.